really caught on fire. What we've really learned over the course of the last year, and especially during this pandemic, is that there is a bigger conversation to be had. And so now the shift has evolved from a docu-series, it's really evolved into a youth-powered digital content platform that aims to start conversations and stop the stigma around mental health. And we're really out to drive connections between young people, their communities, and the resources and the support that they will need to live their best lives. So it's gone from, a docu-series, a one-off show, to a multi-platform, multi-series resource for young people.
Adjourn, you want to add about your journey with the shift?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't even hear the initial question because the connection was so bad.
I'm sorry.
No,
what inspired you to get involved with the shift?
Yeah, so I've known Nadia since I was a kid. And she got in touch with me a couple of months ago, and I had always been, my entire life I've dealt with my own mental health struggles. And I had just seen on social media and different platforms what she was doing with this project. And so it always interested me. But then she talked to me a little bit more about what it was and how it was working. And I was super excited to get involved. And so initially I was actually on as a guest, and Nandi here is the one who interviewed me. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience just being able to openly speak about a subject that, to me, prior to this, just, seemed so taboo in popular media. So it was really like a new outlet, especially in terms of this kind of content. So that's what initially got me into the project in the first place.
And Adrian?
Yeah.
How about you?
A couple years ago, so I've been creating content online for like the past 5 years. I've had a YouTube channel and been on pretty much every social media. It's become my full-time job, is just sharing with an audience of what started as young teenagers, and kind of has aged up into still some teenagers, but also, high school, college, and a little bit above that as well. And so I was first introduced to the lovely ladies of the shift a couple of years ago when they were initially looking for a host or like a moderator, kind of someone to represent the show and be able to facilitate these conversations among the young people. And, of course, the show and the movement has, just evolved. That's the word. It has evolved over time. It's not exactly what it was at the start, but at the start they were looking for a host, and what I think they liked and what I resonated with was, first of all, my parents are psychologists. I have been exposed to mental health my entire life. I've dealt with my own struggles, and I just am so passionate about, the fact that not everyone has the same resources that I had. Not everyone was so lucky to be able to talk openly from a young age. And I wanted to help facilitate those types of conversations among those people who don't have those resources. And I also wanted to just be involved in something greater than myself, and something that's able to just really stop this stigma that has been on mental health for so many years. And so I think we kind of agreed that there was also this unique perspective as someone who creates content for millions of people, to be able to come out myself too and say, hey, like, this is what you see online, this is what you see me doing, but there's more to the story, and there's more to everyone's story. There's more to celebrity stories and influencers and anyone. We all deal with stuff. You're not alone. So I was super passionate about just using my voice and my platform and being able to speak to my own audience about these kinds of things, and just partnering up with the shift because it was so aligned. It made so much sense. I just love everything we've been doing and what they stand for. So.
And Nandi, what about yourself? What got you involved? And how are you adjusting to actually inspiring people with using this platform?
Yeah, so kind of what Mary was saying earlier, I was reached out to about 2 years ago, and I was invited to be on a panel of other youth around my age talking about kind of just like really just what we've experienced throughout our school years, throughout adolescence, and how mostly in particular how social media contributes to that. Because I think now we see how social media has been kind of a blessing and a curse. And, you know, without social media, we wouldn't be able to do this. But at the end of the day, there's on the contrary, social media contributes to a lot of mental health issues that exist around youth and adolescents today that unfortunately goes swept under the rug because people who are, you know, older than us or people who, you know, further generations from us don't have that connection, and we do. And I think really I've been inspired enough to kind of bridge that gap between like Gen Z and everyone before us, because there are things that Gen Z experiences that other generations don't, and there are things that other generations experience that Gen Z doesn't. And I think that is a major contribution to how mental health plays out when we have this conversation between, you know, crossing generations. And really what I want to do, and I've been grateful enough to do it through the shift, is to bridge that conversation and to make it known to everyone, Gen Z, millennials, whoever, that, you know, mental health there shouldn't be this stigma behind it, and it shouldn't be like this taboo subject. Like, it should be a normalized conversation that we engage in as a people. And yeah, that's pretty much my inspiration and what I do, and that's how I've been using my platform.
Hey, Mary, so what does it mean to you that you can use this platform to influence people? And was it difficult to talk about your trials and tribulations with things you had to overcome in your life?
So I'm not sure. So the first question is, I'm sorry. So, I mean, basically, in discussing the shift, I mean, yeah, I can talk about my problems now. When I was around the teenage young adult, I didn't even know what was happening. I mean, I lost my brother when I was 14, and I carried that depression with me throughout my years. And I didn't really have a chance to label that until I became an adult and I went to therapy because the pain had gotten so great. So now I can talk about it, and I feel like I'm separate from it, you know, but I still experience every feeling that everyone's going through, and my feelings of depression and anxiety can get heightened by what's happening. You know, so it requires me to really take care of myself around that.
Nadia, the same question.
Could you repeat the question, Fago?
Yes, ma'am. What does it mean to you that you can influence people by using this platform? And was it difficult for you to tell people about your trials and tribulations with overcoming certain things in your life?
So I am an impact content producer. I've spent my whole career in the entertainment industry creating really meaningful content. So to be a part of the shift means everything to me. It is, you know, it's as good as winning an Oscar, you know, or any other prestigious award in the entertainment industry, even a Nobel Peace Prize. You know, anything's possible. So it means everything to me to be able to share and elevate people's voices around mental health. It's so critical to our comprehensive well-being. You know, and in terms of my own difficulties and challenges, you know, kind of similar to our June story, I come from an Eastern European background, and while I definitely experienced my share of trials and tribulations as a young girl who was very, very challenged at assimilating in a new culture, my parents always encouraged me to come home and be able to sit and share around the dinner table. And so, but for that, I think I would have encountered a lot more of challenging time. But I really just, you know, I'm so grateful to them that I was able to have that space, that safe space where I could come home and share anything. So I was able to let whatever emotional and mental challenges I was dealing with, I was able to let those out. And so they weren't really like, I didn't have to stifle anything. And I think that has made all the difference in my adolescence and in my adulthood.
Nadia, yeah, same question.
So for me, I think where it all starts for me personally is the fact that, well, as if it isn't obvious enough, but I'm a part of the LGBTQ community, and that automatically puts me in a different category in terms of how I deal with mental health. Statistically, we see that LGBT youth, specifically transgender youth, experience higher suicide rates, higher depression rates, and anxiety rates than their straight cisgender peers. And for me, I was harassed, I was bullied, my safety was threatened, and unfortunately, my school's administration and counselors at the time were making me at fault for everything that I was going through, just because I happened to finally work up the courage to tell someone about my sexuality, and they outed me. And because of that, I was pigeonholed into this reality that I didn't want, that everyone knew something about me, and it was under not a positive light, but a negative light. And that was something that definitely impacted my mental health for years. Today, even, I still encounter some of the consequences from that. And, you know, for me, I've just had to realize that I've been able to realize that through having the conversation and through telling people my story and through having a platform and using it the best I can, that I can, you know, restore optimism, and that, you know, not everyone is alone. And I thought in my situation that I was alone because I was the only kid that was being picked on for simply who I am and who I love. And so I think my inspiration really is just the LGBTQ plus movement, because I don't think we talk enough about mental health in the LGBTQ plus community openly because of the fear of, you know, all the consequences that come with that, unfortunately. But for me, I've been able to really sit and reflect on it, and you know, I decided to go see a counselor. I'm still in therapy today. In fact, I have a session with my therapist today. But I still tend to my mental health as if it were tending to, you know, like a garden or something like that. Like, it's an important necessity and it's an important responsibility. And it's something that I don't want to disintegrate into. Like, I don't want it to just disappear. Like, this is something that I have to tend to for as long as I live because it's something that's important to me. But the thing that is, you know, the key takeaway of doing that is I'm turning it into a positive experience. And I think that's what's different, is that before there was no positive outlook because my situation was not a positive situation. But now that I've gone through it and I've learned from it and I've flipped it into, okay, well, how can I change this into something that's empowering, which is exactly what we're doing. And that's the whole thing with, you know, getting rid of this whole stigma, is turning it into a positive situation and turning it into something optimistic and something relatable where everyone can have a conversation and not feel alone and discouraged. So that's a little bit about kind of my battle with my battle and triumph of my mental health. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
You did. Arjun, was it difficult for you to tell people about your journey and using this platform in a positive way to kind of influence others to tell people about their stories as well?
No. I think it was kind of a no-brainer for me. Like Nadia said, you know, my situation was very, you know, knock on wood, luckily it was very progressive. I started experiencing mental health issues when I was a kid, like 11 or 12 years old. And right off the bat, my mom recognized what it was. And immediately it was just, you know, holistic, very comprehensive care. Both my parents were extremely understanding. So I was kind of raised to not really be concerned about what anyone thought about the topic of mental health. I was always just raised to, you know, put mental health at the top of most priorities. And even in kind of a conservative culture, like, you know, South Asian culture, which is what I am, I'm Indian. I've always just been raised to not really worry about those cultural restraints, because it is definitely a taboo thing to talk about. Still, even to this day, but I was always super open about it with my friends and with my family. So it was never really difficult for me to speak about it openly, although it was definitely a new method of expression for me, because I've never spoken about it on a platform like this before. So although it wasn't difficult, it was foreign, to a certain extent. And so I just felt like it was a great next step in my journey of addressing my own mental health, and also to, feed my passion of being able to allow other people to express their issues with mental health. So it was really a natural progression, and I felt amazing about being, asked to join this kind of a movement, because it was something that, was so natural to me as it is. And it was kind of just, what else could I possibly do, so it was perfect.
Adrian, what about yourself?
Yeah, honestly, same with, I pretty much the same as what he said, in the sense that since I was able to speak, I have had no filter. I will say anything at any time that I'm feeling. Even now I'm making dumb, like, potty jokes as a full grown adult when I first meet someone, and I'm like, whatever. So I think that same kind of, like, just characteristic, just who I am, is I talk. I want to tell everyone everything. And it's my way of coping with anything. If I have, a relationship issue, I'm just like, but, like, maybe it was this, or maybe I'm analyzing it wrong, or it could have been that. I've obviously learned to not overanalyze, but point being, I've definitely always felt comfortable kind of being vulnerable and speaking my truth and saying what I'm going through, even as a young person. And I'm not entirely sure why I was that way, nature and nurture, I guess, but a lot of it's just, I think, my personality, because my brother's not that way at all. But so, I felt like this was such a natural next step for, like, actually specifically, like, having a conversation around mental health, and not just kind of saying it in passing. Because I, like I said, I create content every single day. I create videos. I create, mostly videos. And so I've talked a lot about mental health just in passing, just, I woke up feeling a little anxious today, whatever. Okay, cool. But I really started a couple years ago thinking, like, more people than I think are going through probably similar things to me, even just having a funky day one day, there's this huge spectrum of what people go through, and ranging from something like that, like you just wake up, have kind of an off day, to, something else that maybe requires regular therapy or medication or any other type of coping strategy. And I've had all of them in between that whole spectrum. So I just decided, I'm going to specifically have a space where I can, like, in a formatted way, actually sit down and talk to people about mental health. So I've created a couple videos on my own YouTube channel and my TikTok. But the shift was a perfect way to just kind of be like, hey, this is my platform where I'm able to really speak about this, and where I'm able to help facilitate other people speaking about it. And I think one of the most incredible things that I've noticed just from the work we've done so far is this snowball effect of, when we are willing to be vulnerable and just speak our truth to anyone, to one person, to an audience of, 1,000, 1 million people, not only are you just kind of relating to other people and letting them know that if they're going through anything, it's not, like, it is okay and it is normal and you're not alone, but you're also, it's this snowball effect that those people, a lot of those people then, whether they realize it or not, feel this kind of sense of empowerment and confidence to also then speak their truth, or to talk to someone about what they're going through. I've noticed this happen a lot with my personal friends, someone who people wouldn't have ever imagined having mental health issues actually spoke out on just his personal Instagram, and a ton of people. And he used to get bullied, and he's a jock, and he's totally this guy that people just never expected to be dealing with issues. And he decided enough is enough, and I want to, like, talk about what just happened to me, because it was so, intense and tough. So he talked about it, and it's like, he was telling me the other day, just the outpour of not only support from people who he knows and who follows him, but also how many people then messaged him saying, I went through this. This is what happened to me. I've never actually told anyone that before. Like, thank you for sharing what you went through. So I just think that overall is one of the most, like, beautiful things, is that just by us being able to be vulnerable on a platform like this and talk about what we go through and help other people open up about what they go through, it has this exponential snowball effect where so many more people then feel comfortable. And it's like, imagine if each person watching this then went and had one conversation, and then each of those people had like 2 more conversations. Like soon everyone's just gonna, you know, that's our goal here, is soon everyone will just feel comfortable enough to talk about this the way that this is like physical health. It should be treated no differently. You know, we got to check up on ourselves. We got to sometimes go to the doctor. We have to just check in, check with others. And so, yeah, this has been the perfect platform for this for me.
Mary, what advice can you give people that are on the fence about canceling or either going to therapy?
What advice? I mean, I don't have any answers for them, but what I can say is in my journey, therapy really helped me understand where my pain was coming from, you know, from a place in the past. Since then, I've been able to say the past doesn't rule me anymore. Like the suffering I had is not my present. However, the use of therapy allowed me to really understand I'm feeling this way because this happened, and that was a natural response. So I could give myself a break around that and, you know, allow those feelings to happen without judgment. You know, it's the first time for many people where they can say,
Nadia, same question. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. Nadia, you can go ahead.
Oh, you're muted. Oh.
Mary, please finish your thought.
Yes, please. I'm sorry again.
No, it's okay. It could be the first time in someone's life where they're able to be honest about something and have a window of which another person can dig to the source of the pain. And it's almost like in anything, like Adrienne used the analogy of physical therapy. If you have like a growth, you want to get that growth out so that you can have that space again to create something new. And that's kind of what therapy can do for you when you have the right therapist working with you or someone that you connect with. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yes, ma'am. Nadia, I'm sorry again.
Yeah, no, Mary's response dovetails perfectly into mine. What I would like to add is that therapy doesn't have to look the way that you may have seen it portrayed in movies and or television. It could be, you could have a daily therapy session with your family member, with a close friend, with a teacher, with a counselor. I have daily therapy sessions with my partner. So while there are certain conditions and certain issues that do require professional therapy, therapy doesn't always have to look like the way that it's been portrayed in the movies. And so I invite everyone to just give it a try if you haven't yet.
Nandi, what about yourself? And I know you're very young, so tell my younger viewers, you know, your experience about the LGBT community, as well as getting bullied and trying to just overcome that, because a lot of people that are your age are killing themselves now.
Right. So for me, I started therapy after I was outed, and because I mean I didn't have anyone to turn to, and then my counselors just completely dropped the ball because they were that's a whole nother other conversation. But I went to therapy because and then too, I think when any advice that I would give, honestly, especially to LGBTQ youth, is do your research, because you never know there's so many different types of therapy that is specifically for people with certain experiences. Like there's faith-based psychotherapy, there's psychotherapy, or there's therapy for specifically for LGBTQ youth. There's therapy for people who have lost someone to suicide. Like there's therapy for so many different things depending on your walk of life and your situation that it's out there. You just have to look, but it's there. And I was lucky because at my middle school I had it's called, the therapy I go to, it's called Colors Therapy. So for LGBT, and it's specifically geared for LGBTQ youth to talk about their experiences regarding their gender expression, their sexuality, if they've been outed, if they have trouble coming out to their loved ones or parents or family or whatever it is. Like, it's out there. And so my experience, I learned that it was something more than just, oh, I need to talk this with a therapist. I need to talk this out with a therapist because I've been outed and I feel terrible about it. Like, it was something much more than that, which is why I'm still in therapy today. Because obviously, I mean, I was outed like 6-7 years ago. And I mean, I'm still going to therapy and I'm talking about other things. Like, I'm not just talking about how it felt when I was outed in middle school. Now I'm talking about how I feel, on a regular basis. And I'm, again, tending to my mental health and talking about, like, you know, just things that happen in my daily life. If I wake up and I have a bad day, like, these are things that everyone can talk about in therapy. Like, it doesn't just have to be like you have this traumatic experience that brings you to having a therapist. Like, it's not just that. Because that traumatic experience that happened to me it's above me now. It's past me. So, I think that I realized that therapy is it's everywhere. Like, you know, it's not just a therapist that you can find. I mean, my best friend is, like, honestly, he's like the only person that I vent to, really. And he sits there and he listens, and he might give me some advice or tips or something, but he listens. And the fact that he can just be there and be present and then also have empathy and share that with me is everything that I need. And that's honestly all that I've ever wanted to experience and do as well. So that's a little bit about my personal experience with therapy. But yeah, I still have talked to my therapist about other things. I still talk to my therapist about just balancing my life. I still talk to my therapist about, like, habits, personal habits. Like, I talk about everything with my therapist, and it should be normalized though.
But about yourself, Adjourn?
Yeah, I don't know how to follow that up, but I think I just to echo some of Nandi's points. Yeah, I think there is kind of this stigma around therapy where people think you have to, like, go through something traumatic to see a therapist. I mean, you don't get vaccinated after you get the disease, you know? Like, I think it's more about mental health maintenance and, like, just speaking to someone day to day. And I think, to me, at least personally, the utility and the benefits of having a therapist who's a professional is that it's someone who's completely unbiased, who can provide me with, again, a completely unbiased evaluation of my mental state at the time, and have a record of my prior mental states, and then that way be able to have something to compare when she speaks to me in the future. And just to be able to have an emotional inventory with someone consistently who can, even if they're not guiding you, someone who can just listen and not have an opinion outside of their professional realm, I think that's super important. Because if I'm talking to my brother about something, you know, he's known me my entire life, and so he's going to have an opinion one way or the other. Whether he's voicing it or not, he's got an opinion. So I think it's really good to have someone who's completely unbiased, who you can just speak to, even if it's not every week, you know, like once a month even is fine. But just to have someone to consistently check in with, even if things are going well. I say that so much, is that something I say all the time is even if things are going perfectly in your life, continue to talk to somebody about it, because then at least you are taking an emotional inventory of what's going on and you know how to replicate it in the future.
Adrian, what about yourself?
Yeah, so everyone really said incredible things, like hit on pretty much everything I would have said. I love what Nadia said about, you know, it's not therapists, and therapy is really not how it's portrayed in the movies. My goodness, like, oh, what an inaccurate representation of going to therapy, first of all. And then what Nadia said about there being so many different kind of specialties is absolutely true. When you're shopping, so to speak, for a therapist, and again, both my parents are therapists. My mom is a child psychologist, but she also specializes in couples and divorces specifically, and that kind of thing, but really just children mostly. My dad is a forensic psychologist, so he does a lot more home observations to determine, basically to testify in court whether he thinks people would be repeat offenders, whether it's domestic abuse or violence or, you know, sex offenders, anything like that. So my parents both do very different types of therapy. He also does clinical stuff as well. But what I've noticed about both what they do and just therapists in general is you really have to shop. It's really like, say this all the time. Therapy is like dating. Finding a therapist is like dating, because I think people get so discouraged sometimes when they finally, get the courage to, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to therapy. And then maybe it's just not the right match for you. Maybe you don't love the style or the way that they're approaching it, or maybe you just don't feel like you click or that you feel heard, or maybe their expertise is not, specifically kind of what the things that you're dealing with. And maybe you figure out along the way that, oh, actually, I think I'm dealing with this. So maybe, they can refer you to someone else. I would just encourage people to not only give therapy a try, but to not get discouraged if your first experience with therapy is not maybe what you imagined or is not helping the way that you think. I think you need to give it a try. And then you also just, as tough as it is, you got to just keep going. And you have to know that these people have dedicated their lives and have been educated on these topics. They know so much more than we can even imagine. They're experts on what is going on in our brains. And it's so cool. And it's so, it's so different from just talking to anyone. And like you guys said, you can always, yes, like talking to anyone, a loved one, a friend, is absolutely a form of therapy. But I think what's so cool and special about like going to a professional really is that this is their whole entire life mission, is to hear you out and to understand you and to help you feel better. Like they are there to help you feel better. And so I actually have not, except for when I was 4 years old and I refused to use a toilet. I was like, nope, I like diapers. They're so much better. And my parents, who are obviously, my mom's a child psychologist, she's like, I got this. And I was like, no, Mom, I'm not listening to you. I'm like literally just the stubborn 4-year-old. So I had to go to a therapist to help me use a toilet. So I did that and it worked. And then I would just say kind of throughout the rest of my life, even then, it's been so awesome having my parents, because it really has been like I can have free therapy every day. But I think someone mentioned this, I think Arjun did actually, about the non-bias. There are definitely times when I'm like, Mom, I have to talk to someone else about this because you know me so well, almost to the point where you're like, you think you know what's, going on, but really I almost want someone who doesn't know me as well to just see this from a complete outsider perspective. So I have yet to actually go to therapy as an adult ever. I actually only have when I was a kid, but I've been talking lately about how I really want to. I would love to have a therapist. Just, again, it's not like, oh, I need this one experience, this one traumatic thing to be like, this is why I'm going. I kind of just want to go and be able to talk about like some of the different ups and downs that I go through daily. And maybe I'll have some discoveries that, I didn't realize that I would. So therapy is amazing. And it's also like dating. So not everyone is going to be amazing for you. You just have to find your right match.
Amen. And lastly, before I let y'all go, where can we find The Shift? Do y'all have a website or any social media handles? Mary?
I can give some of this information. Our website is www.shifttheshow.com. If someone else can do the IG handle.
Yeah, sure. So we can be on Facebook. We can be found at The Shift Show Official. That's at The Shift Show Official on Facebook. And on IG, Twitter, and TikTok, our handles are at The Shift_series. And of course, our URL is shifttheshow.com. Tongue twister. Shifttheshow.com.
Thank you for joining me. I know you have to jet off for another interview. It's been a very blessing and humbling experience with having you on my show. And I definitely looking forward to watching the docuseries.
Thank you, Fago.
Thank you so much.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you. Definitely have a blessed one and stay productive.